Okay, so I'm literally shaking typing this RN. I've been up all night and I can't even process what just happened. I need to get this down before I explode. For context, I work two jobs, at an emergency animal hospital on weeknights and as a sports photographer on weekends. I live in a small apartment by myself with my dog Max. I've always been the black sheep of my family because I didn't follow the family business, construction, like my brother Santiago, 32. My parents and sister Crystal, 27, have always been on my case about how I waste my potential and should grow up and get a real job, even though I work 60 plus hours most weeks. So yesterday, Christmas Eve, I was getting ready to head to my parents' house for dinner. Had gifts packed in my car, was about to leave when my phone buzzed. Text from mom. Don't come. You're not welcome until you can loan us $20,000. Family emergency. I literally stared at my phone for like 5 minutes. Was this a joke? I called her immediately. Mom picked up and I asked if she was serious. She laughed in this weird way and was like, yeah, dead serious. Santiago's wife filed for divorce last week and he needs money for a lawyer, ASAP, or he'll lose everything, including the kids. I was like, WTF, this is the first I'm hearing about this and I don't have that kind of money. She got all huffy and was like, liar, you work two jobs. Where does all that money go? You don't even have a family to support. I tried explaining that I make barely enough to cover my rent, car payment, student loans, and Max's medical bills. He had surgery last month, cost me nearly $3K. Then I hear Crystal in the background asking to be put on speaker. Next thing I know, she's chiming in with, yeah, right, Jeffrey, where's all that money really going? Drugs? And then my dad grabs the phone and says, probably gambling. Like a loser. I'm getting pissed at this point. They've always done this, assumed the worst about me while Santiago can do no wrong. Last year when he crashed his truck drunk driving, they paid his fines and bought him a new one. When I needed help with Max's emergency surgery, you chose to get a dog, your responsibility. Santiago gets on the phone next and he's being weirdly aggressive. Listen, either help me keep my kids or you're no longer an uncle. It's that simple. I tell him I literally have maybe $500 to my name right now after paying rent and I'm not eligible for any loans because of my debt-to-income ratio. Mom starts screaming at this point. Then sell your car, pawn your camera equipment. Do something useful for once in your life. Crystal jumps in again with, God, you're 29 and worthless. Can't even help your own brother. I'm trying to stay calm but losing it at this point. Then my dad drops a bomb. Know what? New deal, $20,000 by New Year's, or we're telling everyone you're adopted. I nearly dropped my phone. What? I knew I looked different from my siblings. They're all tall with dark hair, I'm average height with reddish brown hair. But adopted? I asked if he was serious and Santiago jumped in. I'll post it on Facebook tonight if you don't start transferring money. Mom's final words. Clock's ticking. Choose. Then she hung up. I sat there in my apartment for like an hour just processing. They've always treated me differently, but this was next level. The crazy thing, I've suspected I might be adopted for years. There are no baby photos of me before age 2, no birth story, no hospital bracelet in my baby book like Crystal and Santiago have. But to use it as blackmail? For money I don't have? For Santiago's divorce, that's probably his fault anyway. He's cheated on his wife multiple times, I've seen it, but kept quiet to keep the peace. I just started smiling. Like actually smiling, because I suddenly realized I had all the power here. See, last year when I was helping my parents move some stuff from their attic, I found a box of old documents, including what looked like adoption papers with my name on them. I took photos just in case, but never brought it up. Also, I know things. So many things. About Santiago's business dealings, about Crystal's secret credit cards, about my parents' tax situation. I've been the family tech support for years. I've seen their emails, their documents, everything they leave open on their laptops when they ask me to fix something. I spent all of Christmas Day compiling everything, setting up my plan. They think I'm the family loser. The black sheep who never amounts to anything, the one they can push around and manipulate. They have no idea what's coming. Then at 3 a.m. this morning, 5 days after that call, I hear frantic pounding on my apartment door. Max starts barking like crazy. I check my phone. 17 missed calls from Mom, 8 from Dad, 23 from Santiago, and a bunch of texts saying, emergency call us now. The pounding continues. Someone's yelling my name. It sounds like they're crying. I'm about to open the door, but something stops me. I smile again. Phase 1 of my plan worked even faster than I expected. Update coming soon. This is getting long and I need sleep. Been up all night dealing with this shit. Update 1. Honestly didn't expect that many people to care about my family drama. Some of you guessed right about what was at my door at 3 a.m. So I'm standing there looking through the peephole, and it's Santiago looking absolutely wrecked, like eyes all red, hair a mess, wearing the same clothes from our call days ago. He's banging and yelling my name over and over. Max is going crazy barking, and I'm just watching, letting Santiago sweat it out a bit. I finally open the door but block the entrance with my body. No way he's coming in without explaining himself. He tries to push past me, but I shove him back into the hallway. He stumbles and nearly falls on his ass. Santiago starts talking a mile a minute about how he's totally screwed and needs my help right now. I ask why I should help someone who just threatened to expose my adoption on Facebook. He gets this confused look and goes, "What? Mom said you threatened to expose some family stuff if we didn't back off about the money." Classic. My mom's been playing us against each other our whole lives. When we were kids, she'd tell me Santiago got better Christmas presents because he worked harder and tell him I got more attention because I was struggling. Total BS both ways. I let Santiago in but make him sit on the floor since my couch is covered in papers. All the financial dirt I'd spent Christmas Day organizing. He looks at the papers, then at me, and gets real quiet. Turns out the $20,000 wasn't even for a divorce lawyer. Santiago's in debt to some guys he met through his construction supplier. He's been skimming from the family business for years to cover gambling debts. The divorce story was a cover because his wife found out and was threatening to tell our parents. I start asking specific questions about the family finances, things I already knew the answers to from my snooping. Santiago is shocked I know so much and starts spilling everything. The family business is basically broke. My parents remortgaged their house 3 times. Santiago's been writing company checks to fake vendors, his gambling buddies. Crystal's been charging personal shopping sprees to the company credit card. They're all drowning and needed my money to plug the holes. I asked Santiago why they've always treated me like the family screw-up when they're the ones destroying everything. He looks down and mumbles something about how they've always been jealous that I got out, that I built my own life without their help. Then he drops the real bomb. The adoption thing? It's way messier than I thought. My biological mom was actually my dad's affair partner. When she died right after I was born, my dad brought me home and my mom agreed to raise me to avoid a scandal in their church community. They never formally adopted me, just got a fake birth certificate through some shady connection, which means I've been living with a literal fake identity my entire life. I'm kinda in shock but also weirdly calm. Like finally the way they've treated me makes sense. I'm living proof of my dad's affair. The constant comparisons to Santiago, the higher expectations, the zero financial support, it's all because my mom resents my existence. Santiago begs me not to tell anyone what he's shared. Says if the truth comes out, the business collapses and everyone loses everything. I just stare at him until he gets uncomfortable. I pull out my phone and show him screenshots of emails I'd found when fixing my dad's laptop last year. Emails to their accountant about creative bookkeeping and moving assets around to avoid taxes. Then I show him screenshots of his wife's texts to her sister about his gambling that she accidentally synced to the family iPad. Santiago goes pale. He asks what I want. I tell him that's the wrong question. The right question is what I'm going to do. Phase 1 starts now. I tell Santiago I'm giving him one chance to fix this himself. He has 24 hours to come clean to our parents about the gambling and the fake vendors. If he doesn't, I'm sending everything I have to their accountant, their church friends, and his wife's divorce lawyer. He starts crying and begging, saying they'll disown him. I remind him they were ready to blackmail me and extort $20,000 I don't have. He gets quiet again. Santiago leaves around 5 a.m., looking defeated. I'm shaking with adrenaline, but also feeling weirdly powerful. For the first time, I'm not the family punching bag. Around noon, my phone explodes with notifications. Crystal's calling me nonstop. Mom's texting that we need to talk as a family. Dad's completely silent, which is actually scarier than if he was yelling. I ignore them all and head to work. When I get home, Crystal is sitting on the steps to my apartment building. She looks pissed, but also scared. She stands up when she sees me, and I can tell she's been crying. Santiago told them everything, she says, trying to sound angry, but her voice is shaking. Dad threw him out of the house. Mom's having some kind of breakdown. They're saying it's your fault. I just laugh. Like actually laugh in her face. My fault? That Santiago stole from the business? That you've been using the company card as your personal shopping account? That Mom and Dad have been lying about my birth for 29 years? Crystal flinches. How do you know about the credit cards? I smile. I know everything, Crystal. Everything. And that was just phase 1. She takes a step back. What's phase 2? I brush past her to unlock my door. You'll find out when Mom checks her email tomorrow morning. As I close the door, I hear Crystal on the phone, her voice urgent. Mom, we have a problem, a really, really big problem. Jeffrey knows about the lake house. The lake house. The property my parents bought secretly 5 years ago through an LLC, while claiming the business was struggling too much to give employees raises. The vacation home they've never invited me to while telling everyone they can barely afford their mortgage. Phase 2 is going to hurt them way more than Phase 1, and they deserve every bit of it. Update coming soon. Update 2. Okay, so things have escalated way beyond what I expected. Trying to type this out between dealing with all the chaos. Sorry if this is all over the place. So after Crystal left my apartment the other night, I went ahead with Phase 2. I didn't actually email my mom like Crystal thought I would. Instead, I contacted my Uncle Rick, my dad's brother, who had a falling out with my parents years ago. I'd always been told he was a troublemaker who tried to ruin the family business. Guess what? The real story is my dad and Uncle Rick started the construction company together, but my dad gradually pushed him out by hiding profits and claiming the business was struggling. Uncle Rick left with barely anything while my parents used his share to buy the lake house. Classic. Uncle Rick was shocked to hear from me. We haven't spoken since I was like 19. He was even more shocked when I started telling him what I'd discovered. Turns out he'd suspected some shady business stuff but had no proof. I had plenty. We met for coffee the next morning and I showed him everything. The fake vendor invoices, the secret LLC for the lake house, the tax documents, everything. He just kept shaking his head, looking at his phone, then back at my documents. Then he pulls out his phone and shows me something that made my jaw drop. Pictures of my parents at some charity gala last month. Mom wearing jewelry I've never seen, Dad giving a speech about family values and sacrifice. This while they were telling everyone, including their employees who hadn't gotten raises in 3 years, that the business was barely surviving. Uncle Rick asks what I want to do. I tell him I don't just want revenge, I want justice. For him, for me, for the employees they've been screwing over. He nods and makes a call right there at the table. Turns out Uncle Rick is still friends with like half the people in our extended family, plus several major clients of my parents' business. People who would be very interested to know where their money has actually been going. I go home feeling kinda pumped, but also nervous. This is getting bigger than I expected. Around 6 p.m., my phone rings. It's my dad. I almost don't answer, but decide I'm done hiding. Dad sounds weird, like super calm, but in that scary way. He asks if I've been talking to Uncle Rick. I say, yep. He's quiet for a minute, then asks what I think I'm accomplishing. I tell him I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. About the business, about me, about everything. He suddenly switches tactics, gets all emotional, says they only kept the adoption secret to protect me, that they've always loved me like their own. I nearly puke. I remind him that just a week ago they were threatening to expose my adoption if I didn't give them $20K I don't have. The line goes silent. Then he says something that actually chills me. He tells me I should be careful about stirring up the past because I don't know the whole story about my birth mother. I ask what that means and he hangs up. Next morning I wake up to a text bomb. Santiago sent like 30 messages at 5 a.m., ranging from begging me to stop to threatening to end me if I don't. Crystal posted this weird, vague Facebook status about family traitors, and blood isn't always thicker than water. My mom called 8 times but left no voicemail. I head to work trying to ignore it all. When I get home, there's a manila envelope taped to my door. Inside are photos. Old photos of a woman who looks kinda like me with my dad, dating back to before I was born. Photos of her pregnant. Photos of her holding baby me with my dad, my real birth mom, the woman I've never seen a single picture of my entire life, the one who supposedly died right after I was born. There's a note in my mom's handwriting. You want the truth? Here it is. She didn't just die. Ask your precious Uncle Rick what really happened. I'm freaking out. I call Uncle Rick, but he doesn't answer. I start Googling my birth mom's name, which was written on the back of one photo. Nothing comes up. I try adding my dad's name, our hometown, anything I can think of. Nothing. Around 9 p.m. my buzzer rings. It's Santiago and Crystal together. I'm hesitant, but let them up, mostly because I want answers about these photos. They come in looking stressed. Santiago has clearly been drinking. Crystal keeps checking her phone. I show them the photos and ask what mom's note means. They look at each other like they're deciding something. Santiago finally says nobody in the family talks about it, but the story goes that my birth mom didn't just die. She killed herself shortly after I was born, and Uncle Rick was supposedly involved somehow. He was friends with her, or maybe more than friends. The details are fuzzy because everyone's been keeping secrets for decades. I don't know whether to believe them. This could be another manipulation tactic. I tell them I need proof before I believe anything else from this family. Crystal starts crying, which is weird because I've literally never seen her cry as an adult. She says things are falling apart fast. Dad's biggest client called today asking pointed questions about financial statements. Mom had some kind of breakdown and threw a vase at the wall. The business could be in serious trouble if more clients start asking questions. I just stare at them. This is exactly what I wanted, right? Them feeling what I've felt. Powerless, confused, scared. Santiago gets in my face, grabs my shirt. He's yelling that I'm destroying everything, that I'll have nothing and nobody when this is done. I shove him off hard and he stumbles into my coffee table, knocking everything over. Crystal gets between us, pushing us apart. She's suddenly the rational one, which is a first. She says they didn't come to fight. They came to offer a deal. The deal is this. If I stop talking to Uncle Rick and anyone else about the family finances, they'll give me my share of the family business. They'll put my name on the LLC that owns the lake house. They'll welcome me back to the family with no more secrets. I actually laugh in their faces. I tell them I don't want anything from them anymore. The business is probably worthless with all the debt and fraud. The lake house likely has a massive mortgage. And the family that tried to extort me, that lied about my entire existence, that treated me like garbage my whole life. Yeah, hard pass. Santiago lunges at me again, but Crystal yanks him back. She looks me dead in the eye and says if I don't take the deal, they'll make sure Uncle Rick knows exactly what happened with my birth mother. That it'll destroy him, too. I tell them to get out. Crystal tries to say something else, but I just open the door and point. They leave. Santiago slamming the door so hard the frame cracks. I'm standing there in my trashed apartment trying to process everything when my phone pings. It's an email from Uncle Rick. Jeffrey, couldn't answer your call earlier. Was meeting with an old friend from the bank where your parents have their business accounts. You should come by tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I have something you need to see. And watch your back. Your dad called me making some pretty disturbing threats. I look at the photos of my birth mother again. There's something about her eyes that seems so sad, even in the pictures where she's smiling. What really happened to her? What does Uncle Rick know? And how far will my family go to keep their secrets? Guess I'll find out tomorrow at 9 a.m. Final update coming soon. Final update. First, holy shit, thank you guys for all the support. I've been reading comments between dealing with this nightmare and it's honestly kept me going, trying to wrap up this whole saga now. So I barely slept after Santiago and Crystal left. Kept staring at those photos of my birth mom, wondering what really happened to her. The way my dad threatened me about stirring up the past felt off, like really off. I showed up at Uncle Rick's place at 8:45 a.m. Paranoid as hell. Kept checking my rearview mirror the whole drive there. Uncle Rick lives in this small house about 30 minutes outside town. Nothing fancy, which seemed weird considering he co-founded the family business. He answers the door looking tired, like he hasn't slept either. His kitchen table is covered with folders and his laptop is open. First thing he asks is if I was followed. I say IDK, maybe. He checks out his windows, then sits me down. What he shows me next makes everything else look like kid stuff. Bank statements, loan documents, tax filings, all showing my parents have been running basically two companies. The legitimate construction business that everyone knows about, and this shell company that's been siphoning off profits for years. Uncle Rick explains he suspected this since they pushed him out, but couldn't prove it until I showed up with my evidence. When he got forced out 10 years ago, they claimed the business was barely breaking even. Meanwhile, they were hiding at least 40% of the income through fake invoices and this shell company. Then he pulls out an old newspaper clipping. My birth mom, Elaine, didn't just die randomly after I was born. She died 3 months later. The article doesn't say suicide directly, but uses that phrase, died suddenly at home, that newspapers use when they don't want to say suicide. Uncle Rick's voice gets all quiet. He tells me Elaine was his wife's best friend. That's how she met my dad, at Uncle Rick's wedding. When she got pregnant, my dad promised to leave my mom, but once I was born, he changed his mind, decided to stay with his real family, and Elaine was just left alone with a newborn. My mom agreed to take me in, but only if Elaine stayed away completely. 3 months later, Elaine was gone. No note, no explanation, just an empty bottle of pills. I feel sick, like physically sick. My dad didn't just have an affair, he abandoned my actual mother to the point where she killed herself. And my mom didn't graciously take me in. She used me as a way to control and punish Elaine, then resented me my entire life for existing. Uncle Rick says there's more. When Elaine died, she left a small inheritance to me. Not huge, but like $25K that was supposed to be for my education. My parents were named trustees since I was a baby. Guess what? That money disappeared. They spent it. My money. I'm literally shaking with anger at this point. Uncle Rick shows me the death certificate, the trust documents, everything. He kept copies of it all because he never trusted my parents to actually give me the money when I turned 18. While we're talking, Uncle Rick's phone keeps blowing up. My dad calling non-stop. Finally, Uncle Rick answers and puts it on speaker. My dad is screaming, saying if Rick tells me lies about the past, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. Uncle Rick just calmly says, "It's too late, I already know everything." Dad switches tactics, suddenly sounds desperate. Says we need to talk as a family, that things are getting out of hand. Uncle Rick asks about Elaine's trust money. The line goes quiet, then Dad hangs up. Uncle Rick looks at me and asks what I want to do. I tell him I want them to face consequences. Real ones. For everything. So we make a plan. A real one. Not some petty bullshit. First, Uncle Rick has a friend at the IRS. All our evidence of tax fraud goes to him that same day. Second, I file a formal complaint with the State Contractors Board about the business using fake vendors and invoices. Third, Uncle Rick contacts a lawyer about Elaine's missing trust money. I go home and block every single family member's number. I'm done talking until it's through my lawyer. 2 days later, Santiago shows up at my apartment again. This time, he looks absolutely destroyed. Unshaven, same clothes, like he's been sleeping in his car. He's not angry anymore, just defeated. He tells me the IRS has already contacted my parents. Their accounts are being frozen. The business might be done. He's about to lose his house. Crystal's husband is threatening divorce over the financial scandal. My mom hasn't stopped crying for days. My dad is talking about declaring bankruptcy. I just stare at him. He wants me to feel bad? After what they did to me? After what they did to Elaine? Santiago tries a different angle. Says everyone makes mistakes. That they're still family. I laugh in his face. I tell him they stopped being my family the moment they tried to extort money from me on Christmas Eve. The moment they threatened to expose my adoption if I didn't pay up. The moment I learned they stole my inheritance and covered up how my real mother died. He looks confused about the inheritance part. Apparently, my parents never told Santiago or Crystal about Elaine's trust. One more secret. Santiago asks what it would take to make this stop. I tell him there's no stopping it now. The evidence is already with the authorities. The wheels are in motion. Actions have consequences. He leaves looking shell-shocked. I almost feel bad. Almost. But then I remember how he threatened to post about my adoption on Facebook if I didn't give him money I didn't have. A week passes. I hear through Uncle Rick that the State Contractors Board has opened a formal investigation. The IRS audit is happening. My parents had to hire an expensive tax attorney. The family business has temporarily shut down while the investigation is ongoing. Then I get a letter from a lawyer, not threatening me, offering to represent me. Turns out my birth mother's trust wasn't the only thing my parents might have stolen from me. Since I was the product of an affair and never legally adopted, there could be inheritance rights I was denied, benefits I never received, all kinds of legal issues. The lawyer heard about my case through Uncle Rick and thinks I have a strong claim. I meet with him and decide to go forward, not just for the money, but for the truth, for Elaine. 2 more weeks pass. I'm working both my jobs, walking max, trying to maintain some normalcy. Then I get a text from Crystal. Just 2 words. Dad's hospital. I call Uncle Rick instead of responding directly. He's already heard. My dad had some kind of stress-induced health episode. Not a heart attack, but serious enough for hospitalization. Part of me doesn't care, but I decide to go. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. And honestly, to see the consequences of their actions with my own eyes. When I get there, the waiting room is tense. Crystal is sitting alone, looking up from her phone when I walk in. She seems surprised I actually came. She tells me Mom is in with Dad, and Santiago is getting coffee. I sit across from her, not next to her. The distance feels important somehow. Crystal looks tired. She starts talking about how everything is falling apart. The business is essentially dead. Their house is likely going into foreclosure. The lake house already has a lien against it. Santiago's wife has taken the kids and left. Crystal's husband is making her choose between him or standing by our parents. I listen without commenting. She asks if I'm happy now that I've destroyed the family. I tell her the family was destroyed long before I did anything. It was destroyed the moment they decided to lie about everything, the business, my birth, all of it. I was just the one who exposed the rot that was already there. Santiago comes in with coffees, stops when he sees me. He looks awful. He asks if I'm here to gloat. I tell him I'm just here for answers. My mom comes out of Dad's room. She looks older somehow, smaller. When she sees me, she stops walking. We stare at each other for a long moment. Then she does something I never expected. She starts crying. Not manipulative crying, the kind where your whole body shakes. She sits down heavily in a chair and just says, "I'm sorry," over and over. It doesn't sound like she's apologizing just to fix things. It sounds like the weight of decades of lies has finally broken her. I don't comfort her. I just ask why. She looks up, her face streaked with tears. "Because every time I looked at you, I saw her, and what your father did, and I couldn't." I couldn't separate you from that. It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. It's the most honest thing she's ever said to me. I tell her I'm going to see Dad. Alone. He's awake, hooked up to monitors. He tries to sit up when I come in, but I tell him to stay down. I don't sit. I stand at the foot of his bed. Tell me about Elaine, I say. And he does. The whole story. How he loved her but was too cowardly to leave his family. How my mom found out and gave him an ultimatum. How they took me in, but my mom could never fully accept me. How they used Elaine's trust money to save the business during a downturn, always intending to pay it back but never did. How they've been running from the truth for 29 years. I listen without interrupting. When he's done, I tell him everything that's happening. The IRS, the contractors board, the lawyer I've hired to recover what's mine. He doesn't argue or threaten anymore. He just nods, like he's been expecting this reckoning for decades. Before I leave, I tell him I'm changing my name to Elaine's last name, her family name, my real family name. The look on his face tells me it's the right decision. As I'm leaving the hospital, my mom tries to stop me, asking when they'll see me again. I tell her that's not up to me anymore. It's up to the IRS, the state investigators, and the courts. I walk out without looking back. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, the investigation has expanded. Turns out the business has been mismanaged and defrauding people for years. Former employees are coming forward. Clients are filing complaints. It's way bigger than just what they did to me or Uncle Rick. I've moved in with Uncle Rick temporarily while I figure out my next steps. Max seems happier here with the bigger yard. I'm still working both my jobs, but now I'm also talking to the investigators, providing evidence, telling my story. The lawyer thinks we can recover at least triple the original trust amount due to mismanagement and breach of fiduciary duty. Not a fortune, but enough to maybe put a down payment on a small house. A fresh start. Santiago texted yesterday asking to meet. I haven't responded. Crystal emailed saying she's leaving her husband and moving out of state. My mom called Uncle Rick trying to get him to mediate some kind of family reconciliation. He told her that bridge is burned for good. I don't know what happens next. The investigations will take months. The legal cases might take years. My parents will probably lose everything. Their house, the business, their reputation. Do I feel bad about it? Sometimes in weak moments. But then I look at those photos of Elaine, my real mother, and remember what they did to her, what they did to me, the decades of lies and manipulation. This isn't just revenge, it's justice. For her, for Uncle Rick, for me. And unlike what they tried to do to me on Christmas Eve, it's all completely legal. They broke the rules for years, and now they're facing the consequences. The family I was forced into is over. But maybe with time I can build something new, something honest, something real. Thank you all for your support through this crazy situation. Your comments have seriously helped me stay strong. We'll update if anything major changes.